Hello and welcome to this week's YouTube video. In my opinion, ALLA PRIMA painting is the most difficult skill to learn in oil painting. Furthermore, the process can be littered with myths about the right way and wrong way to do it. There are many ways. In today's video, I thought I'd show you how I painted this kitten ALLA PRIMA and hopefully dispel some of those myths. If you have watched any of my early videos, you'll know I started off my art journey painting in layers. This was for two reasons. Number one, I struggled to stay in control of my paintings for ALLA PRIMA. And number two, I wasn't skillful enough to paint ALLA PRIMA, although I didn't realise this was the reason at the time. I think the biggest challenge with ALLA PRIMA painting is that you need to be pretty correct with your colour, value and temperature choices when you lay your paint. You don't want to be fiddling with these elements too much. Constant overpainting corrections can lead to too much paint, loss of control and a muddy painting. There are many ways to start an ALLA PRIMA painting. It doesn't have to be done in one sitting or in one layer of paint. I did not appreciate this fact when I first started realistic painting. In fact, it wasn't until I read Richard Smith's ALLA PRIMA, Everything I Know About Painting, that I began to really understand the process and appreciate how many ways there was to do it. If you struggle with your ALLA PRIMA painting, then I thoroughly recommend getting hold of a copy of this book. I think the most important elements of effective ALLA PRIMA painting are correct colour mixing, using enough paint to be able to manipulate your edges, staying in control of your painting and correct brush choices. I'll discuss each one of these in relation to my cat painting. Let's start with colour mixing. Understanding the mixes that your paint makes is imperative for correct ALLA PRIMA painting. The colours I have on my palette for this painting are cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, ultramarine deep and titanium zinc white. I have also mixed up a red black, a green black, a purple, two oranges and a lighter green. The colours artists have on their palette is personal to them. Some people like to mix less from more, some more from less. I prefer to mix more from less. Understanding the colour wheel and where your paint sits on that wheel will help you with correct mixing. Red is the warmest colour, blue is the coolest. As the colours move away from red towards blue, they become cooler. Bear in mind also that white is a cool colour and will cool down any mix it is added to. Therefore, think of the colours in terms of temperature. Red, orange and yellow are warm colours. Blue is cool. Green and purple are transitionary colours because they can be both warm and cool. You'll notice there is no brown on my palette. Brown is a tricky colour to work with because it can have every colour hue in it. In my painting, you'll notice I have red brown, orange browns, yellow browns, green browns, purple browns and blue browns. This is where the power of understanding how complementary colours work is helpful. Complementary colours sit opposite each other on the colour wheel. When you mix them together, you get brown. When you add white to this mix, you get grey. Therefore, it is not necessary to have brown or grey on your palette. In fact, it will hinder you. Understanding how to mix them will improve your mixing generally because they are the hardest colours to get right. Also notice that I have 3 yellows and 3 reds on my palette. They are all differing temperatures, transparencies and saturations. If I mix my cadmium yellow with my purple, I will get a different brown than if I mix my yellow ochre light with my purple. It will be a cooler brown. Why? Because cadmium yellow sits here on the colour wheel, whereas yellow ochre light sits here. It is nearer to red, so it is warmer. The result is a warmer brown. My cadmium yellow will also give me a more saturated brown. It will be the same for my reds. If I mix cadmium red with my lighter green, I will get a warmer brown than if I mix alizarin crimson with my green. It will also be a more saturated brown because cadmium red is a saturated red. Therefore, when I look at my reference photo, I ask myself, is my brown warm or cool? If it is warm, I ask myself, am I seeing red, orange, yellow, yellow-green, or red-purple? If it is cool, I then ask myself, am I seeing blue, blue-green, or blue-purple? If I am struggling to see the colour, I hold up a grey card to my reference photo. Once I've narrowed down my colour hue, I then ask myself the position of that colour hue on the colour wheel. Am I looking at a green mixed with cadmium yellow, yellow ochre light, or transparent yellow oxide? If I'm not sure, I mix up a couple of options of green, then mix in my red, then dab onto a piece of card. I'll then hold it up to my reference photo as a way to colour match what I'm looking at. This seems quite a laborious way of doing it, but with practice, you just begin to instantly know what colours will make what without needing to colour match. Also, don't forget your value will be controlled by your dark colours. So here my black red, black green and purple. My black red and green mixed together will give me my black, which can be warm or cool depending upon how much of each colour I use. I can lighten with white or yellow. Don't forget that the addition of these colours in any mix will affect my temperatures. Manipulating your edges and staying in control of your painting. I'm going to deal with these together because in order to manipulate your edges, you need enough paint on your canvas. Too much paint and you are in danger of losing control of your painting. Not enough paint and you won't be able to manipulate your edges. It's a bit of trial and error in figuring this one out. Every artist will handle their paint differently, so you need to work through this one with practice. In order to avoid losing control, I would recommend not using any medium in your paint. Stiff paint behaves itself better and allows you to manipulate it easier without it turning into a slippery mess. If you are finding your paint is just too stiff, try using the Rembrandt paint range. These paints are really buttery straight from the tube and not too pricey. If I could only have one brand of paint on my palette, it would be these, but I like to mix and match between the brands of Rembrandt, Winsor & Newton and Gamblin. This cat painting was done in 5 sittings. Therefore, I had an issue of dry paint at various points of the painting that I had to deal with. How did I do this? The biggest misconception I had with ALLA PRIMA painting was that the whole thing had to be wet and done in one sitting to count as ALLA PRIMA. This is not true. Sargent was the master of ALLA PRIMA painting, and his lavish portraits would take him weeks. The most important thing to understand is how to prepare and leave your edges for the next sitting. If I show you the photos taken at the end of each sitting, I can explain how I worked. I left sections unfinished at their edges. When I painted the legs, I made sure I repainted about 1 centimetre along this edge so that I had a wet edge to pull into each other. I hadn't really overworked this footstool and could see temperature and value issues that I needed to correct. I left it this way until I was ready to work the edges into each other. As a rule, if I am laying my paint in a scumbling layer to get an idea of what I'm looking at, I don't worry too much about my edges. The paint is thin and sketchy. I am just concerned in getting something down. If I am overpainting a sketchy area and intend the area to be finished, I will make sure that my edges are wet so I can drag them into each other. To get that broken line effect that you see down that edge, you need both sides of that paint to be wet. Therefore, when painting, you have to bear this in mind, and if you intend to stop at a suitable point. Brushes and how to lay the paint. Brush selection is really important. Think about what it is you want to do. If you are laying paint on in a blocking in, you'll use a stiffer brush than if you are attempting to paint wet on wet. Remember, the softer your brush, the less likely you are to take paint off, but a soft brush will give a very soft effect. This is not always what you might want, so there is a certain amount of experimentation with brushes. I like these synthetic Artmaster flat brushes. They are really good for getting paint down, and straight edges allow me to do line work and flick my paint about. If I am attempting to paint soft fur and I am brushing wet paint over wet paint, I am more likely to use these Rosemary & Co. Eclipse long-haired comber brushes. You can also be quite expressive with them too, rolling the paint around. In summary, I would say if you are struggling with painting alla prima, concentrate on improving your skills. Focus in on getting your drawing and values correct first. Then work on your colour mixing, understanding the cool and warm temperatures on your palette. As your skills improve, you will find alla prima painting becomes easier. You will then be able to start being expressive with your edges and brushwork. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.